I got an awesome new collection in. We're going to take a look. We're going to talk about pricing. We're going to talk about CGC, and we're going to screen for CPR candidates. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
Before we hop into this collection, I want to remind you to follow me over on Whatnot, link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase. A lot of the books that are in this video are going to be auctioned off for $1 on Whatnot. By the time you're watching this, I just auctioned off The Amazing Spider-Man number 300, like a $1,400 book. Hopefully that didn't go terribly wrong, but there will be a bunch of these books that will come to future Whatnot shows, so make sure to follow me over there. Also, we do a monthly giveaway on this channel. If you subscribe, comment, and like, you are entered to win 2 CGC 9.8 slabs this month. And if you head over to bryscomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, that's where you get first access to new collections like this, even before the videos, discount codes, and you're also entered to win free slabs each and every month that you stay subscribed. Follow me on Instagram for trades for grails and other fresh content over there. So I want to take a closer look at some of these books and go over the graders' notes and why they got the grades that they did. I think videos like this will just help add to your repertoire of experience with looking at CGC graded books and why they got graded the way that they do. I think every time that you watch a video like this, you just get a little bit better with knowing what to expect from grading with CGC, because there's really no substitute for experience and time, and just surrounding yourself with the hobby and with the experience, and videos like this are super helpful to get an idea of their grading. So a lot of times I get asked, people say, should I wait to submit my books to CGC with all that's going on with CGC, the inconsistencies in grading, the quality control issues, all the other drama that's happening at CGC with all the growth, expansion, new employees? There's a lot of uncertainty about submitting your prized collectibles to CGC. And I think that if you're somebody that has had your books your whole life, you plan to keep them your whole life, you just want to get them encapsulated and graded, I think that now is as good a time as any to submit, as long as you know what to expect. I think you can expect quality control issues. They're getting their turnaround times more reasonable, so that's on the mend. But I think you can expect some quality control issues, and consider if that's something you're willing to put up with. Usually with quality control issues, for the average collector, they take care of them in a timely manner and in a reasonable way. As a dealer and the volume that I do to CGC, I am dealing with some incredibly stressful, very unique situations with CGC that's incredibly frustrating, but I do a large volume, and I don't think that that applies to the average collector. But just keep it in mind that, you know, there are horror stories coming out of CGC right now. But as far as the inconsistency for grading, my personal experience, and this is just my personal opinion, is about 80% of the time the books are graded consistently. And I think you have about 10% on either end that are outliers graded too harshly and outliers graded too loosely. And you'll see examples in this actual collection here of a book that was a gift grade, but I think that that is about 10% of the time on either end. So if you look at the numbers overall, you know, 80% consistent, you actually have a 10% chance of getting a gift grade, you know, rough numbers. You have a really decent chance of getting the grade that it is or better. So really, you know, a good time as any to submit. And then if things change maybe 5 or 10 years down the road and CGC is just completely different than it is today, you can always resubmit them, and at least they are, you know, graded, encapsulated, and safe for the time being. So pricing for the collection. So I paid $5,000 for this collection. I value it somewhere around $7,400. So right about 70% is what I paid for this collection. If you're looking to move your books, link down in the description to all my contact info. Feel free to reach out, send a list, and I can shoot you an offer. It's a super easy, seamless process. Seller sent me the books. Same day I received them, within minutes. I'm on the phone and sending his money. It's in his account. It's a done deal. I know there's a lot of anxiety and stress around sending, you know, your prized collectibles through the mail to somebody else, but I do it all the time. I've never had a problem. It's always super smooth, super seamless, and you can have peace of mind knowing that there's not going to be any big surprises, and you'll get your money right away. So link down in the description if that's something that interests you. And with that said, let's hop into this collection. All right, so I want to start with this stack here. These are the books out of the collection that I thought would be interesting to look up the graders' notes to see why they got the grade they did, if they're potential bump candidates, and then we'll look at this stack over here just to admire these epic collectibles from this awesome collection. So the first up is Submariner #1 in a 6.5 off-white to white, and the graders' notes say light spine stress lines and moderate creasing to cover. So this is one that I thought, definitely has potential. It's a little bit on the stricter side as far as the grade as it is. I mean, the spine looks pretty tight. The corners are sharp. The edges are sharp. There's one limiting factor here, which is that little chunk out there. So I think that as a limiting factor, it would tap out at like an 8.0, 8.5. And then when you look at the graders' notes, also say moderate creasing, which is pretty bad creasing, and as you can see, like right there, and just all throughout the cover, there are creases that can be improved. There's another one right here. So with a clean in the press, in the back of this book looks actually pretty clean, not a ton of soiling or anything on the back. So I think this book could possibly get an 8.0 or an 8.5 if you had a really good presser. So this one actually could be a candidate to crack press and resubmit. Next up we have Fantastic Four '94. This is the first appearance of Agatha Harkness in a 7.0, and the graders' notes say light soiling to cover, light spine stress lines to cover, and moderate creasing to cover. So the light soiling is interesting. It's on the back, and as you can see, it's pretty significant, right? I mean, this book is dirty. And this is considered light, all right? So it's not very light and it's not moderate. It goes very light, light, and moderate. It's somewhere in the middle, which could be easily improved on the back. Light spine stress lines. So when we look at the spine stress lines here on this book are actually more significant than that of the Submariner book. It's still in the category of light spine stress lines, but moderate creasing to cover. So again, the moderate creasing in this book, you can just tell it's got some creases on the cover, like it hasn't been pressed or cleaned. So then you have to look for limiting factors, and the limiting factor on this book is going to be the creasing, like up here in this corner. You see those lines there. That's going to tap this book out at like an 8.5 because it's at both corners here. So this book potentially could go up to an 8.5. Next we have Uncanny X-Men number 266 in a 9.4, and there is no graders' notes on this one. And what's really interesting about this one is the amount of spine stress lines that are on this book. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there's actually more than that. It's just kind of hard to see in great detail, but there's at least 15 spine ticks on this. There's no graders notes. It's a 9.4. Granted, when you look at it from like a distance here, I mean, they are small spine ticks, okay? So we'll give them that. But I think 9.4 is a gift grade on that one, because when you look over here at this 9.4, also with no graders notes, this book took a little bit of a rough ride in transit. I gotta send it back in to be reholdered. The book wasn't damaged, but the case was. And this one has a black back cover, which makes it really easy to see spine ticks. But this one also got a 9.4. And as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 tiny spine ticks on this one. 4. So 4 spine ticks on this one. versus 15 on this one. They both got 9.4 white pages. I think this one actually is a 9.4, and I think this is a gift grade for a 9.4. X-Men 54 in an 8.0. Graders notes say light creasing to cover and very light spine stress lines. So this one is very light spine stress lines to cover, which is, you know, the least designation. It goes very light, light, moderate, and then I can't remember what's after that. But as you can see, I mean, it's just hardly anything along the spine. Very, very light. I mean, to the point where there's nothing that just stands out. That's very light. And it also says light creasing, and this is the biggest light crease that I saw in the book. It's right here. It breaks color. It's from reaching your hand into a bag and board and pulling it out. It doesn't mention this in the grader's notes, but there's this little bit of a dust shadow. So a dust shadow is when this book was in a stack of books and was sticking out just a little bit from the other books. Other books are on top of it, and just over the years, little dust particles settle on that paper and form a dust shadow. This can be improved. It's a slightly risky process, but it's not even mentioned in the grader's notes. I think the very light spine stress lines and this color breaking crease here, there's nothing you can do about those. So I don't see it getting a much higher grade than possibly a 9.0 if you can, you know, hide this a little bit with pressing, but I just don't think it's worth it. So Fantastic Four Annual number 6, and the grader's notes say light creasing to cover, light scuffing to cover, light spine stress lines to cover, and moderate finger bends to cover. So, I mean, this book is a 6.0. We don't really need to look at all of those defects in detail, except, you know, just taking a look at the cover and all of these finger bends that are on there. I mean, look at that. This book has been read and read and read and enjoyed. And so it hasn't been pressed or cleaned. A little bit of soiling on the back. So it definitely could get a grade bump. However, so the next thing you do is you look for limiting factors. Here's a crease right here, that's a limiting factor. Here's that scuffing that breaks color, that's a limiting factor. So I think this book taps out at like a 7.0, 7.5 on its best day. So I just don't think it's worth it because it's kind of hard to press and clean these square bound books. It makes it a little more difficult to really get those defects out. So I just don't think it would be worth it on this. I did also want to point out that this book has what appears to be a printer's crease. That is right here and right here. It's not in the grader's notes because printer's crease should not affect the grade. And what a printer's crease is it's when the crease happens on the paper before ink is applied. So if you ever printed something from your home printer and the paper gets jammed as it's going in and it kind of goes in sideways and then the ink is applied on top of that, that's a printer's crease. And it happens with comic books too, for varying different reasons, but usually it's the crease happens as it's being pulled through the printer or even in the manufacturing of the roll of paper itself. I mean, it's cheap paper, so it makes perfect sense that there would be imperfections on that, and it does not affect the grade. I have seen a 9.8 with a printer's crease that went the full length of the back cover. Now, if it was like egregious and it was all spiderwebbed and over the entire cover, then possibly it could affect the grade, but typically it shouldn't. Here's the She-Hulk number 1 with no grader's notes, and this one also coincidentally has a printer's crease. So you can see it right there. It doesn't break color because it happened before the ink was applied. So it's kind of hard to explain what it looks like, but you're looking at it. That is a printer's crease right there. And so this book has no grader's notes. That wouldn't affect the grade, but there are a couple of tiny spine ticks here on the back cover, so I'm not sure that it would be worth it. If you could disguise those a little bit because it's a white cover and really flatten it out with a really good presser, it could be worth it to take a shot at that 9.8, because the 9.8 newsstand of this would be awesome to have, but it's not worth the risk for me. So here's one, X-Men Annual number 14. This one I was really surprised until I saw the notes where it said tear with crease, left center of back cover, because when you look at this book, I mean, it's just got super sharp edges. The spine is flawless. It's a tight, square bound book. no spine ticks whatsoever. So I'm looking at the corners, I'm looking at the book, and I'm going, what in the world caused this to get an 8.0? And then there it is right there. Unfortunately, this color breaking tear, which is a limiting factor, which this otherwise perfect book taps out at an 8.0. So I have seen a tear like that in a 9.0, but it would be less severe than this. So I think 8.0 is a fair grade with that defect. So here's the rest of the awesome books in this collection. Star Wars 42, first appearance of Boba Fett in standard comic book form. Savage She-Hulk in a 7.5 newsstand. Nova #1 in the 9.0. It's got, you know, spine ticks and stuff, along with this one, Avengers Annual #10, first appearance of Rogue and Madeline Pryor. Both of these just weren't worth looking up to see. A 9.6 white page, Uncanny X-Men #221, the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. Some spine ticks preventing that one. The cream of the crop in this collection, Amazing Spider-Man #300, 9.6 white pages, custom label. This is such a tough book to get in 9.8 because of this all black back cover. And this one just has the tiniest color breaking spine tick on the back cover. It only barely breaks color too. I mean, I've seen 9.8s with defects like that. It has a chance, but it would definitely be the lower end of the chance. Not worth sending back in. This book is so easy to pick up new defects. I would not feel comfortable cracking this out. I would not feel comfortable sending this in. So it is what it is. Venom Lethal Protector #1, 9.8 white pages, custom label. Star Wars #1 in a 9.4 white pages. Some spine ticks preventing that from being a candidate. Black Panther 2 in a 9.6. Super clean copy, just the slightest of color breaking spine ticks presenting that one. 9.8 Amazing Spider-Man #299. And I wanted to show on this 9.8 the type of spine stress that is allowed on 9.8. There you can see just the faintest spine stress that actually does break color. I wouldn't necessarily consider this a gift grade. I think that is about the maximum amount of spine stress that is allowed in a 9.8. I mean, it is so minor. It's still a near mint collectible, but I did want to show that it can still have some spine stress and get a 9.8. Here's a 9.0 Amazing Spider-Man 316 newsstand, that classic first cover appearance of Venom. He also appeared in Cameo, where it was just his head in a prior issue. Iron Man #282, first full appearance of War Machine. Epic cover, 9.2 white pages. Spine stress on this one, you know, possibly improved to a 9.4, but not really worth the risk. Same as this one, Amazing Spider-Man 252, newsstand edition. Ties for the first appearance of Black Suit Spidey. Amazing Spider-Man #31, a 4.0, first appearance of Gwen Stacy. And I saw this book, I'm like, man, I need this book in my personal collection. I absolutely love this book. I will one day add a high-grade copy of this to my collection. Marvel Premiere #1, the first appearance of him as Warlock, in a 6.5. In this grade range, it's not even worth it to me to look at a grade bump, because the price difference between a 6.0 and a 7.5 is just negligible to the point where it's not worth it to look it up. But an awesome collection. So don't forget to follow me on Whatnot, guys. Link in the description for $15 towards your first purchase. You'll find some of these books and more starting at $1. It's also just a fun time to be able to connect with each other, go back and forth, talk in the chat. I'm usually there 3 days a week, and I really like that aspect, the social aspect of Whatnot. Talk about comics, talk about what's going on in the world. It's really a good time. Also, subscribe, comment, and like this video for your chance to win 2 slabs. Sign up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com for a chance to win more slabs and get first access to new collections, exclusives, and awesome stuff that's happening at brycecomics.com. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.